It's Mental Health Week. Mental health gets spoken about more and more, and that is a good thing. But it often gets spoken about vaguely and generally. I struggle with mental health, as though that was one umbrella term that encompassed the detail and the suffering and the sadness that might apply to you, and to talk about them as though they are one homogeneous group is not to help anyone who suffers through it, who wants to feel less alone. And so, when we speak about our pain, we have to have the courage to talk about the detail. We have to talk about the times you're alone on your bed crying and you can't seem to get up. When you can't seem to escape your brain and all you want to do is sleep because it's the one place the thoughts stop. We need to talk about the devil in the detail. We need to talk about the all-consuming nature of those thoughts. The way they ravage you and stop you thinking or caring about all those things that make you you. We need to talk about how it slows time down, so that something that feels like 5 minutes seems to have lasted 5 hours, and it is that dragging out of the suffering that makes you question whether you can keep going through it. If you've wondered whether you can keep doing this, then you've contemplated suicide, really. Because suicide isn't what most people think that it is. It's not wanting to die. It's not being able to live. It's the thought that this is unbearable, and I can't find a reason to keep going with it, especially if it doesn't end. We might then talk specifically about the thoughts we have surrounding our body, or our relationship to our loved ones, or how pathetic we feel. We might talk about how embarrassed we are, that we can't seem to get over it. We might talk about the frustrations we feel every time we come up with a new strategy that we're convinced is going to help and then doesn't. We might talk about what it feels like to go and sit down in front of a complete stranger and say, "I'm not well." We might show someone what it feels like a little bit. See, we want people to think a whole bunch of stuff about us. And we want to show them we're the best. And we take anything. We don't want them to see, sometimes, what that might otherwise look like. Because we want to be that person. We don't want to be scared and embarrassed and feel pathetic anymore. And we cling to the idea that we could get through that we might be that person, because sometimes we are that person. We've been that person at times in our lives. And so it stands to reason that we can be that again. Sometimes we just need help. I needed help. I had no fucking idea what was wrong. If I hadn't found a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder, I would have been trying to use the wrong tools to fix me. It was all well and good saying I was fine, but I didn't feel fine, and I wasn't fine. It's all well and good saying that you should love yourself, but love isn't something you just utter as though it fixes things. Love doesn't always fix things. Love needs to be a verb sometimes. It needs to be an action. It needs to be something you go and do, not something you say. And the action isn't the word. The action might be going and getting help. That might be loving yourself, far more than saying I'm great as I am. Loving yourself might be acknowledging that you're flawed and you're not all that you could be. Because if you don't acknowledge that, then where you are right now and all the pain that you're in right now is never going to get any better. The only way it's going to get better is if you acknowledge the fact that you're not all that you could be. There is hope in that message. There is hope in the message that you can be more. And that if you can become that, then you can overcome the tragedy that is your life sometimes. And then All that mental health has to be is something that makes you cry when you look back at it. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't feel shit very often these days. I don't struggle with OCD. I cry when I think back. I cry when I remember sometimes. Sometimes I smile because I'm grateful for it. I've learned a lot. I wouldn't trade. I'm glad, weirdly, that I went through the pain that I went through. And that's actually true of most people who've been through most horrible things. Maybe not most, but a lot. And it doesn't mean they love every moment of it. But there are things they've learned to bring together inside themselves that develops them, that develops you and makes you into someone who is kinder, more compassionate, more thoughtful, more engaged than you were before, and, crucially, more able to deal with those difficulties. And that matters so much, because if you can deal with that, if you can deal with the worst that you can imagine, then life doesn't have to scare you so much anymore. You don't have to be as vulnerable as you once were. And then you can help other people. And everyone likes helping other people. It's one of the best feelings you can get. But you can't help until you've helped yourself. Because real help requires real understanding and a real solution that is specific to the problem that you have. And none of that can take place until you are brave enough to speak openly and honestly and specifically about you. So if you're going to take anything from Mental Health Week, it's that speaking opens the door to everything else. Speak to me if you need to. Message me. Speak to someone you trust. Speak to your doctor. Speak to a professional. Buy every book you can find on a topic. Begin the process. I really hope you do.